Very warm greetings, everyone. Now, welcome to the lecture series on the book Living in Truth, the Gandhian Paradigm. This is lecture number 2, Gandhi's Moral Revolution. This book is published by Rupa Publications and authored by Ramin Jahabiglo and Pooja Sharma. This is the front page of the book, which is Living in Truth, Gandhian Paradigm, and this is the full cover page. These are the authors which we will go again, in detail discuss, describe them later. The book comprises of basically 6 chapters. The first one is the introduction chapter with Gandhian paradigm, describing the Gandhian paradigm. Chapter of 1, which is basically will talk about the Gandhi's moral revolution. Second chapter will talk about Gandhi's political revolution. Third chapter will be going through the Gandhi's economic revolution. And fourth chapter will talk about Gandhi's ecological revolution. Finally concluding thinking with Gandhi. This particular lecture will concentrate on highlight certain important points regarding Gandhi's moral revolution. The Gandhian paradigm, Mahatma Gandhi's relevance to India and the whole world is greater than before. I take this opportunity to introduce you all the fundamental essence of this book. Gandhi placed the concept of responsibility in relation between the political and spiritual, which was a remarkable work done by a unique work contributed by Gandhi. This is referred to as Gandhian ethical and political revolution, which is described wonderfully by Professor Amin in this particular book. Gandhi did not consider freedom as mere pursuit of selfish aims at the expense of others. For him, freedom meant deeper understanding of the term freedom is required when you think and try to understand Gandhian perspective. So, the Gandhian paradigm proposed in this particular book it basically consists of 4 branches and 4 components, dimensions of paradigm. First is the moral revolution, political revolution, economic revolution, and finally the ecological revolution. What is understood by paradigm we have already discussed in the first lecture. Now we move on to the next the first revolution by Gandhian paradigm, which is Gandhi's moral revolution. Gandhian moral revolution was significantly revolutionary in the sense that it transformed the whole of relationship between the definition of civilization and architecture of the ethics. Gandhi wrote in 1909 in his seminal work in Hind Swaraj that civilization is that mode of conduct which points out to man the path of duty. So, contrary to the actual practical meaning of civilization which we have been noticing and observing and experiencing, his idea of civilization is that one needs to point out and realize the path of duty in the process of civilization. Performance of duty and observance of morality are convertible terms for him. To observe morality is to attain mastery over the minds and our passions. So, while doing so, we know ourselves. The process in which we try to connect to the morality principles and we take our minds above our passions and desires, while doing this, we come closer to ourselves and we discover ourselves. As such, the core idea about this particular notion of Gandhian notion, it emerged in South Africa, where he experienced satyagraha and it was basically a process of self-mastery which he proposed from there. Gandhi was above all concerned with was very much enlightened with Socrates. The use of Delphic maxim, which is also known as know thyself, as a necessary moral element of what he underlined as Swaraj or self-rule. It was Socrates that the ethics of self-examination which prevented him from doing any act which is wrong. Hence, Socrates' abstention from the untruth and injustice was a philosophical act permitting him to follow his daimon. What is daimon? According to Socrates, daimon is his inner voice. It is the direction which is opposite to the prejudice of the masses. So, your inner voice is different to what the masses are formulating or prejudices have. They have some notion. So, your inner voice it may contradict or may not be the same. So, it is daimon which was considered as inner voice by Socrates. This inner experience was remarkably understood and propagated by Socrates. In some of the situations, the voice that ordered him to halt, to stop what he was doing and to change his course of conduct, Socrates considered that voice to be very, very unique and unique of its own kind. If it were directed to him alone from a supernatural power or a sort of tutelary kind of a spirit which is actually teaching, it is playing a role of a teacher inside him. So that force is considered as the inner voice according to Socrates. It was very much similar to what Gandhi proposed. So the Socratean approach was like it was an appeal to his inner voice as the power of soul strengthened him towards morality, and philosophically the moral integrity which he proposed made him a lover of wisdom, of par excellence. So the entire wisdom which emerges in a person, which is guided by the inner self, inner call or inner voice, is what is of par excellence, and it is considered as concrete wisdom which will go along the whole life. In other words, Socrates' commitment to live philosophically in the truth was the direct outcome of his understanding of the ethical and nature of the action. So every action is emerging out of the ethical concentration of the inner voice. Socrates knew that pursuing the wisdom and the ethical content of philosophical questioning, that is what is guiding life, and that kind of a life is only worth living. Over the centuries, this Socratic movement of questioning and self-examination, it has been endorsed by all those who have maintained that unjust laws are contrary to the higher law of moral consciousness. Historically speaking, no person like Mahatma Gandhi has been so close to the Socratic moral values and ideas or self-examination and self-realization. The concept of self-rule, which is proposed and presented and emerges as a Mahatma Gandhian thoughts, offers a possibility of expressing the core, and that is integral to the Socratic ethical values. Like Socrates, Gandhi also strived to live a life that is based on wisdom, that suggested self-examination and promoted moral values. However, the path of Gandhi tried to trace as an Indian philosopher politician, and it also passed on through many of the non-violent struggles and various revolutions, and then a new paradigm of human progress was foreseen, was visualized as a moral achievement. Above all these movements, the aim was to achieve a new paradigm of human progress and moral achievement. This was the whole main objective behind all the efforts. According to Gandhi, a civilization that is based on greed, in which mammon has replaced God, means the wealth, and wealth that is for selfish motive and for accumulation and hegemony over others and for the selfish purposes, that has replaced God, and that which measures progress in terms of only profits, only monetary values and wealth accumulation, which puts corporate health and the stock market at the center, and above all the human health and well-being. It can hardly be called as civilization according to the Gandhian views. So civilization based on all the greed, capital formation, materialistic accumulation, hegemony over others, preponderance of power, all these acts, which is motivated by such acts, a civilization which is heading towards all this is not the kind of civilization one should visualize for. A civilization that has destroyed environment and threatened the very existence of the planet itself can surely and not be considered a progressive kind of a civilization. In other words, the philosophy implicit in the modern Western civilization is the hedonistic kind of a philosophy of maximizing pleasure and minimizing the pain. Gandhi's questioning of utilitarian and instrumentalist rationality as practiced by European modernity was followed by the idea of non-violence as the only morally and politically acceptable alternative. Gandhian critique of modern civilization has been very well quoted in Hind Swaraj, which is one of its greatest Socratic gesture, which one can say, of moral descent in the history of the modern thought. Accordingly, what Gandhi suggested was a moral revolution, Socratic self-examination accompanied by the self-transformation of the society. So, the innovation which Gandhi did with Socratic kind of ideology was the notion of Socratic self-examination, self-evaluation, and that inner voice. It was accompanied by self-transformation of the whole society. Now, how does Gandhi bring in this particular, incorporates this in the model of Socratics? So Socratic model, which is based on self-examination, self-realization, self-evaluation, when it is accompanied by the transformation of the whole society. So this individual connectivity with the whole society at large, and then transformation. This was the value addition and innovation presented by Gandhi. In that sense, we can find in Gandhian moral philosophy a close connection between political self-rule and ethical self-transformation of the individual. In this, Gandhi was a total follower of Socrates. Since he admired both the moral courage of Socrates and the practice of soul force, that is towards the truth. So, what Gandhi proposed and considered Socrates, he could also name Socrates or address Socrates as a satyagraha and a soldier of truth. In his writings, many places Gandhi has mentioned Socrates as a soldier of truth. While is still in South Africa, Gandhi published an article on Socrates in the columns of Indian Opinion entitled as Story of Soldier of Truth. Gandhi described Socrates as heroic in this article and also wrote that today the world cherishes Socrates' memory. His teachings has been beneficial to millions of people. His accusers and his judges stand condemned by the world. Socrates has gained immortality. He's become immortal, and the Greece stands in high esteem because of him and others like him. Gandhi was a philosopher of civic dissent who found the source of his action in the moral consciousness. This is how we can understand Gandhi's reference to his inner voice as an experience of living in truth. For Gandhi, the quote-unquote still small voice, as he calls it. So it's important to understand what he means by still small voice. For Gandhi, the small voice, that is inner voice, as he understands it, was always the final arbiter in his diverse conflicts in life. This is very, very important for the whole of humanity to understand that what he addresses as a small voice. The small voice becomes the arbiter. Then if you hear that voice, you don't need any supernatural power like God. Maybe it is sent by that power itself, and that becomes the driving force and decisive force for all the conflicts in life at an individual level. And then we will see how this individual level, because of interconnectedness, the ideology or the hypothesis of interconnectedness which is proposed by Gandhian thoughts, that leads to the social transformation. Gradually we will see in the whole of the book that how that interconnectedness and self-transformation would lead to the transformation of the whole of moral revolution. I have always, these are Gandhi's words, I have always believed God to be without form, but when I did hear, was like a voice from afar, yet quite near. It was as unmistakable as some human voice speaking to me and irresistible. I was not dreaming at the time I heard the voice. On the contrary, a terrific struggle within me preceded the hearing of the voice. Suddenly, the voice came upon me. So these are his words of experience of inner voice, when he actually heard and encountered the voice of the supernatural force in him. I listened, made certain it was the voice, and the struggle ceased. The moment he registered the voice as a voice of the supernatural power or the larger force, the struggle ceased. Means the conflict came to an end. Gandhi's appeal to his inner voice was similar to Socrates' dialogue with his diamond. Socrates called this inner voice as diamond. Diamond, basically, by this he meant the supernatural power which gives direction on and off to each one of us. In both Socrates and Gandhi, the exercise aimed to discover a path of truth while purifying one's heart and preparing oneself against the violence of the political realm. So it is this inner voice which becomes the guiding force towards the truth and prepares, and it not only purifies an individual's heart but also prepares an individual against all kind of violence a person is going to face, experience and encounter in his entire life, because a political realm one needs to exist with or coexist with. Gandhi affirmed morality as an ideal. So far as I know my consciousness, I have striven through thoughts, word and deed to reach the ideal. As such, Gandhi positioned himself closer to Socrates and his philosophy as a source of moral virtue. Gandhi's critical attitude towards modern civilization in Hind Swaraj directly results from his moral proximity to Socrates' practical philosophy. Gandhi perceived a clear distinction between the civilization as the path of compassionate self-realization and civilization not as a mad race of economic and technological progress. For him, civilization was more towards self-enhancement, not as a mad race only for the materialistic accumulation and technological progress. In this connection, it would be essential to note that Gandhi suggested a very important notion, which is diminishing the wants to lessen the pain. It is very, very important to understand this particular statement. It is diminishing the wants to lessen the pain caused by modern civilization. So one needs to go deeper into the lines and the notion and idea behind those lines. Diminishing the wants, why one needs to ethically think about it and rationally think about the wants before desires, before actually practically wanting it. So why would you diminish it? Because you want to lessen the pain or the repercussions caused by the modern civilization, because you have explicitly demanded something or wanted something. That is why he advocated a life which is a simple living, based on simple living and high thinking. So most of us all know about his philosophy of simple living and high thinking. So he advocated this philosophy. High thinking comes from the spiritual awakening, which boils down to love and compassion towards all. In practical terms, it means having enough to satisfy one's basic material needs and aiming at spiritual attainment. So I repeat, and we go deeper into this statement, that what do you mean by simple living and high thinking? In practical terms, it basically implies that one needs to have enough of the materialistic needs to satisfy the basic wants, and what you aim is not the materialistic wants. What you are aiming is at the spiritual attainment while living in this world of good and evil and working to build a civilization of peace and harmony. So this is the larger picture of simple living and high thinking. Mahatma Gandhi's paradigm of progress was neither defensive nor imitative, but essentially moral and spiritual. In that sense, his ideas of modern Indian civilization differed entirely from the rest of the other modernizing projects like Turkish and Japanese projects. So we continue the discussion on this particular chapter of moral revolution after a short break.